What's up guys, I'm Aaron the Tech Guy, and today I'll be talking to you about DaVinci Resolve. I'm going to directly compare features that I use whenever I make videos and put them head to head. But first, what is DaVinci Resolve? Well, let's back up for a second. Almost every video you've seen on this channel was edited on Adobe Premiere Pro. Adobe Premiere Pro is a non-linear editor, or an NLE, meaning that it can have multiple audio and video tracks, up to 48 I think. There are other NLEs, such as Final Cut Pro, Avid Media Composer, and the editor I'm talking about today, DaVinci Resolve. Recently, I've seen a bunch of creators try out DaVinci Resolve. It makes sense to make the switch, right? It literally has a free version, it has similar features to Final Cut and Premiere, and it's supposed to be more stable. Even if you want to buy the more expensive studio version, it's only $299 as a one-time purchase, which is significantly less expensive than a $50 monthly subscription to Creative Cloud. But can it replace the Adobe Suite for me? Well, yes, but no. The first thing to compare, naturally, is editing speed. Can it perform as well as Premiere? Not that that's so much of a hurdle to jump over in the first place. As far as I can see, performance is near identical. Although it was never that good on my computer in the first place, when it comes to editing on an Ultrabook, there will be no noticeable performance gain or loss from it. Yeah, that was from my first draft of the script, while I was only using Resolve. But I went back to Premiere for a project, I noticed that the playback was much smoother in Premiere. But why is that? Well, I did some research, also known as passively watching a ton of YouTube and randomly finding my answer, and I found out that Premiere is much more CPU based, while Resolve splits the load with the GPU. So why don't I notice better performance in Premiere? From that logic, Resolve should be better, shouldn't it? It splits the load more evenly. Well, that would be true if I had a GPU. Here's the thing. I edit all my videos on my Yoga C940. The video will be somewhere, which has an Intel Core i7 with Intel's G7 Iris Plus graphics, an integrated graphics chip. The G7 graphics are much better than the previous generation, the UHD Graphics 620, but they're no dedicated graphics card. Therefore, since I have a powerful CPU and a not so powerful GPU, the performance is better on Premiere. To be clear, the difference isn't that bad. I mean, they're both usable, but the difference is definitely noticeable. If I had a more powerful PC with a graphics card, I would assume performance would be better in Resolve, but for laptop editing on Windows without a graphics card, Premiere is still the way to go. Now that I've talked about the performance differences between the two, coming from Premiere, how is the Resolve timeline like to use? Personally, I found them to be almost identical with a few key differences. The first is the new Cut menu. This is a page that has two views of your timeline. It has a zoomed in view for basic editing, and a zoomed out view on top for an overview of your entire timeline. I never used that tab once, because I found that I couldn't do many things like access any of my keyframes or zoom into the timeline any further. So now, let's talk about the more important part, the Edit tab. As I mentioned, it is quite similar to Premiere's, but everything is laid out slightly differently. Instead of having access to keyframes right next to the effect controls or the inspector in Resolve, they can only be accessed on the timeline. I've heard lots of people seem to prefer using the keyframes on the timeline, but I personally prefer seeing them right next to the effect controls. But that seems to be a matter of personal preference. A difference that is very polarizing is the magnetic timeline. If you don't know, the way this works is when you delete anything, the timeline will automatically do a ripple delete, and it'll move everything on one side of the timeline over proportionally. Here's the thing, I almost always use ripple delete in Premiere, but the implementation in Resolve doesn't seem to be very good. For some reason, when you delete something, everything moves, including things that are already in the place that I want them to be, which is super annoying. I do like that it automatically just does it for you, but it just pisses me off at times. And that's about it for the timeline. There's not much to say there. Ooh, backsort. Let's move on to color. Before Resolve was an NLE, it was a color grading tool used by many Hollywood professionals. So naturally, the color grading, even in the free version, is really advanced. A weird problem that I noticed is that it doesn't seem that you can copy color grading from one clip to another, which is why the color in some of my recent videos is so inconsistent. Sorry about that, by the way. For a lot of people, having these advanced color grading tools available for free is probably a huge boon, but I don't do actually much color grading on my videos. Just minor things like boosting shadows and fixing color tint. So the Matchy color in Premiere does the job just fine for me and is much simpler to use because it's laid out exactly the same as Camera Raw in Photoshop or Lightroom, and it's good for simple adjustments. Time to talk about Fusion. But wait, what is Fusion? Well, if you must know, it's a visual effects program similar to After Effects. I tried it out to see if I could remake my intro in it, and it was one of the least intuitive programs I've ever tried. So unintuitive in fact that I couldn't figure out how to use it at all. As opposed to After Effects, which works similarly enough to Premiere, that I was able to figure out how to use its basic functions without using any tutorials or anything at all. It seems that in the free version, Fusion is seriously nerfed, so it's not very usable, but apparently if you buy the full version, you get a very advanced visual effects program that has been used for many VFX intensive movies, such as Avengers Age of Ultron. I use After Effects all the time, and losing that functionality in the simple integration with Premiere really sucks. Fairlight is Resolve's answer to Audition and Premiere Audio. It does all the basic things that I need, like EQ, except for a few things. One feature of Audition that I discovered is now one of my favorite features of Audition is the Remix feature. Remix allows me to stretch or contract a song or track to the exact length that I want, which is freaking amazing if you make any type of video at all. Resolve does not seem to have that feature, which is really annoying and alone would be a jailbreaker for a lot of people. I also don't like that Resolve doesn't have any EQ presets, such as the vocal preset that I'm using right now to process my audio. One weird glitch on DaVinci Resolve is the export. If you've seen a few of my recent videos, you'll notice that there was a weird glitch on the intro. What's up guys, I'm Aaron the Tech Guy, and this is the AirPods Pro versus the Beats EP. Apparently there's a problem with H.264 encoding in Resolve. If you export in any other format, there is no glitch. However, since H.265, which is the next generation of H.264, isn't available on the free version, I have to export in a lower bitrate format, which is fine for YouTube, but not for really bigger projects. So I think it's time for my conclusion. I'm going to use some clips from a video from MKBHD and from Mr. Mobile to introduce it. Let's start the discussion with the clip from MKBHD.
Not to pat myself too hard on the back here, but that's like asking a professional driver if they can feel the difference between a Porsche 911 and a 911 GT3 RS. Like someone who's super calibrated can feel the difference between those two things, but to the regular person, they're both just extremely fast. So
the analogy isn't perfect here, but I'm going to go with it anyways. In this case, I'm the race car driver. I've been using some form of Premiere, be it Premiere Pro 2.0 that I used when I first started my channel because it was free. Please don't watch those videos, they suck. Or the current version of Premiere Pro CC. I've been exposed to it, so I can notice the difference. Here's the thing. If you're first starting out with video editing, you've never had access to these more advanced features that I was talking about, and you'll have a place to grow without paying a cent. And when you outgrow the limited features of the free version, there's the full studio version for a one-time purchase of $299, much less than the subscription service of Creative Cloud. The next way I'm going to use that analogy is that I have the ability to use both. I get Creative Cloud for free through my school's education license, so cost has never been an issue for me. Let's move on to the next clip.
Have you ever heard of Bettridge's Law? It's a journalism maxim which states that any headline that ends in a question mark can be answered by the word no.
The title of this video is a question. By the maxim that Mr. Mobile stated, of course, the answer for me will be no, and that still holds true. For what I do, Premiere is still the better option. It has better performance on mobile, and it is more intuitive for me to use. That doesn't mean that Resolve sucks, and by all accounts, it's quite good. It's really good. It's just not for me. However, I can fully recommend Resolve to all of those looking to start out for video, but cannot justify the obscene, and yes, I mean obscene, cost of Creative Cloud. Congratulations, you've made it to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications with the bell icon so you don't miss any of our future videos. As always, for watching, Aaron the Tech Guy.